The first major arc of Lupin the Third Part 5 comes to a close, and it's gonna leave you pretty shocked. At the end of the last episode of Lupin the Third, Lupin had just been killed. His brain matter had been splattered all over the place, and he was left for dead. Ami was all alone, Zenigata was in complete shock, and apparently Fujiko had turned into a villain, bringing upon the anger of Jigen and Goemon. That is until this episode, where of course we get to learn that this entire turn of events has actually been an elaborately concocted ruse by Lupin and his gang. And yes, Fujiko is in on it as well. This was a very satisfying episode right here, especially when Lupin actually made his official appearance in this episode all the way at the end here, though. We get to see that his death had some pretty massive repercussions for Zenigata, who not only lost his position of searching for Lupin, but he's been thrown in the narcotics department, something that he doesn't seem too thrilled about. But he's also going to be looking after the character of Ami, who ends up being very instrumental in not only finding out where Lupin truly is, but also a part of this crazy plan to bring down the entire Marco Polo organization. Really, this is exactly what I was expecting. When I was reviewing the last episode, my first thought was, I'm waiting for that aha moment. The moment where we realize really what's going on here. And I have to say, it worked out really great in this episode, especially the way that Ami was incredibly important in this episode. Really, this entire episode right here, sort of a culmination of her entire arc. And I think it was handled really well, especially how she's the one who bravely went to the Marco Polo headquarters and was able to trick them with a little bit of savvy technology and, of course, a little help from the famous thief himself. What I love is that she meets up with the leader of Marco Polo, and she meets him in this dark room where she sits down in a chair, which predictably, of course, bounds her. And she gets trapped in this room, which is slowly filling up with water. Or is it? That's what I really love right here. It's the moment where we get to see that the villains get their comeuppance, and what's going on here is that she's using an AR filter to actually make it appear as if the entire room is filling up with water, which starts to become apparent when she starts to talk, when said room is completely submerged. When this guy goes down there to check it out, he doesn't find Ami. He ends up finding Lupin, who's pointing a gun directly at his head. And this is where he has to make the decision. Do I try to be a badass and take out Lupin the Third, one of the greatest thieves of all time, and risk having my head blown off? Or do I end up giving myself up, the entire Marco Polo organization, and get cuffed by Zenigata? You can pretty much guess what option he goes with. Zenigata ends up being the hero, Lupin and Ami end up escaping, and Fujiko gets even richer. Apparently, in the last episode, when she was planning to kill Lupin, that's not what was going to go down. She was going to sort of fake his death and collect all of that money from that website, which would have sort of been her payment, allowing Lupin to appear dead and to get away scot-free with all of the stuff that he stole from Marco Polo. They even go as far as we get to see that the sniper and drone team from the last episode were actually just Jigen and Fujiko in disguise the entire time. It's really freaking great the way that it is handled. Even Goemon gets in on the antics, both him and Jigen, as they chase down the other members of Marco Polo in a very threatening and very badass way. And even Zenigata gets a lot of glory, as since Marco Polo did a lot of underdealings with drugs and everything, and he's in the narcotics department, he just landed himself one hell of a white whale. Basically, everybody wins in this situation. But what happens to Ami? Well, actually, Lupin decides to send her to school to begin her brand new life. It's a really important moment for her character as she finally realizes why Lupin does the things that he does. It's simply for excitement. And she has learned by being with him that even though the world itself can be very harsh and frankly kind of scary, it's something that's worth seeing. Something that's worth living through. And it's a really big breakout moment for her character, and you get to see that Lupin has not only nurtured someone else, but also heavily influenced them yet again. It's something that he's really good at. He's not just a really great thief. He's a great influencer. So, What's the rundown on this episode of Lupin the Third Part 5? And it's an episode that hinges on the fact that you've watched the previous episode. It has no impact if you didn't see the previous episodes, and it just totally worked in this one right here. What I thought was really cool was getting to see Zenigata's home life a little bit more, seeing him in his apartment eating soba noodles and acting goofy and ridiculous. He was acting so goofy, in fact, that I almost thought that it was actually Lupin in disguise the entire time, and I kept trying to rack my brain around, how are they actually going to get out of this situation? What did Lupin actually plan? And seeing it all actually, play out was really fantastic. Fujiko being in it as well does make sense. It was a little jarring in the last episode, seeing her be so malicious, but again, she's a great liar. Maybe the best in the entire world. Her relationship with Lupin is also still kind of up in the air by the end of this episode when they have a phone conversation, which hopefully will lead to some more spicier developments more as we get into this season. What I will say is this was a pretty great conclusion to the first major arc of this series, and I just loved every single friggin' second of it. I honestly could watch Lupin until I croak. It's that type of show. They can just keep creating scenarios for these characters, and they always manage to be fun and, most importantly, surprising. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. This was a pretty fantastic addition to the series. It was a great introduction to the first major arc of the series, and it was a reintroduction to all of the characters, and I'm sure things are only going to get crazier from here. Is the Lupin game going to be revived? We'll have to see. Now that his face is out there a lot more for the world to see, people are more aware of him, but in today's day and age of social media, what is popular one day will be completely forgotten the next, and I think that's the way Lupin is going to want it. And this was a pretty solid episode right here. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. While I did like the episode, the first half was a little slow, but still very instrumental to Ami and her overall development. But we all knew that aha moment was coming, and it really did work in this episode. So that's my thoughts on this one, 4 out of 5. I'd love to hear yours, however. If you did watch this episode, tell me what you thought in the comment section below. Were your predictions or theories right about what was actually going to happen if this was all a part of Lupin's plan? What did you think of Ami's story? Do you think that she's going to return at some point in the franchise or maybe even in this season? And what do you hope to see from the rest of Lupin the Third Part 5? Thank you guys for watching this review. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, stay down there, baby.